Thanks. I'm Bev Perina. I own Armadillo Property Management here in town. And a couple of shameless promotions for me as well. I happen to own the Bellevue store, and this weekend is a grand opening for the Bellevue Bean. Has anybody been out there yet? Yeah, it's awesome, huh? Great. And then I'm also teaching, and I have some flyers here. I teach a property management class. It's a 2-day class. I've been accredited through the Real Estate Commission to give you 12 extra credit hours. So you're not going to have a better class or more fun than mine. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, so go to the Bellevue store for the grand opening on Saturday. And if you'd like to take my class, I've got flyers right here. So a little bit about me. I've been in business for 30 years. I started when I was 10. And, okay, that's a lie. And I currently manage 450 well, a little bit more, but 450 single family duplexes, apartments, condos, townhomes. A good many of them here in Fort Collins. I've got a couple of houses and apartments in Loveland, well, in a big apartment building in Loveland, house in Windsor, and some stuff up in Wellington. So it's kind of northern Colorado. I haven't went to Greeley, don't do Greeley anymore, but there's nothing wrong with being in Greeley. I have put on the front cover sheet of your handout my cell phone number, and you're more than welcome to call me anytime. I'm happy to give you information. So I'm kind of interested. I have been doing this. I didn't realize, Jen, it's been 5 years we've been doing this?
06 was the first time.
Wow. So I'm kind of interested in who you all are. So how many private investors do we have? Raise your hands. Awesome. And then how many people own or work in a property management company? Great. And then how many of you are realtors or have your broker's license? Great. Well, that's awesome. So those of you in property management companies, Derek's with me at Armadillo. So which company are you with? Touchstone. Stacy, you guys are all with Touchstone? And awesome, awesome. And you do homeowners associations as well? Good, good, good. And so the private investors in town, you already have rental properties and you're looking for more information, or you're looking to buy properties? Because I've had people in here that are thinking about buying rental property and then leave and don't buy it. No, I'm kidding. Well, some of them have. Anyway, this information in this class, as well as my big class that I do, is how I do business. This is not the gospel, but this is how I do business. So if you do business a little differently, I totally understand. Something I'd like to, is there a handout back there, Jenny? Is there a handout back there for her? Yes. Yeah, okay, perfect. So something I'd like for you to think about is developing your team. And what I mean by that is, when I first started my company, I tried to do it all. And I don't know if those of you are in the same boat, but it's like you just want to, not have to ask questions. You don't want to have to get advice from anybody. And I realized over the years how important it is to have your team. And so some of the people on my team are my attorney, other property management companies. I mean, Stacy and I are really good friends. I'll talk to her. I know Anna at Associa. So, I have questions about anything, I'll call them. And your maintenance professionals. It's like, your plumbers, your electricians, your roofers, flooring people. You have questions or you need to refer them stuff, write work orders, all that stuff. Your banker. I used to know Nancy Snow down at the state. She did all the talks on fair housing. She's not with HUD, but anyway, she was awesome. And Nancy, you could call at any point in time. And I think you're going to have a fair housing, one of the attorneys.
Next week.
And so keep their card. If you get some weird phone calls, call them and say, this was a little strange and how do I address this? So all of the people that you're going to hear for the next 2 classes, keep their business cards, give them a call, mine included, if you have any questions. Jenny's another wonderful resource. So is Beth. Your IT person, have a mentor, and that could be me. I'm happy to be a mentor. Tenant screening services, and then your insurance agent. Obviously when you buy property or you've got insurance questions, that person needs to be on your team. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to wear all those different hats. I should have maybe put psychologist on here, but but ask for help. And Anyway, so another promotion I have for you today is I am on the board for the Northern Colorado Rental Housing Association. It used to be called the Apartment Association. And any of you can belong. I don't, Stace, do you guys belong to the, well, I don't think you do, I'll call you. An associate I know belongs to NARPM, which I have some information here. So the Apartment Association seems like it's kind of exclusive to apartment communities. It's really not. I've been on that board for almost 30 years as well, and it's a wealth of information. We're having our trade show next week, and if you're interested in going, please give me a call, and I'm happy to give you information on that or grab a flyer. And then I belong to the National Association of Residential Property Managers. You do have to be a broker or a support staff person to belong to this association, but it's a wonderful group. So if any of you that are interested in that have your broker's license, let me know. So we'll go to the next page. Oh my gosh. My motto is to hire people much smarter than yourself. I copied these incorrectly. So had you take the staple out because at some point in time we're going to kind of lay them side by side. But anyway, not quite yet. But so let's get into kind of the meat of the meeting here. So where to find residents? I have a website which I think is awesome. My website is rentfortcollins.com, and Fort is all spelled out. So RENTFORT Collins.com. And I would encourage any of you to go and take a look at that website. I developed it so that when you go on that website, it shows you everything that we have available. Starting with the property that's most available, or that's available right now, with the price range, and goes down from there. I'm just not a real fan of going to those websites where you press bedroom 1, press bedroom 2, and if any of you have that, and I don't mean to offend you, but I just find that this is really easy, because oftentimes a price for a property that's a 1-bedroom, you may have something that's a 2-bedroom that would be available to them as well. So check out my website. It's got pictures, it's got maps, and if you want to know the guy that did it, I'm happy to give you that information. We also advertise with off-campus student services, and that's free. Will you have more information on that? Perfect.
There's a site that's called rentalsearch.com. You can post on there for free, and it's basically geared towards the 25,000 plus of the CSU student body, and we're potentially going to share it with Fort Collins community college students as well. So if you're open to having students at your residence, this is where we funnel them to look, because they know that it's a safe place for them to look and that you're looking for them. So.
And what is it again?
Rentalsearch.com, but you can just go to Off-Campus Life at CSU, and it'll gear you there, or give our office a call by looking on the website, and we can help you get set up. Bev, will you repeat some of that, because she's not mic'd?
So rentalsearch.com or
Off-Campus Life.
Off-Campus Life. Oh, sorry. So how many of you rent to students? Okay. So so the percentage of, it's really interesting, because a lot of people think that you are a property manager or an investor in the city of Fort Collins, and all your properties are students. 17% of my company are students. And it's kind of interesting for you to kind of look at the dynamics too of who you do rent for, so that you know where to market. So that's a wonderful site. Along with that is the CSU Housing Fair that's typically a week before spring break. So that's a great place to advertise. Who advertises on Craigslist? So those of you that don't advertise on Craigslist, is there a reason? Go ahead. Who doesn't? You don't. Brad?
We don't. We went with northernColoradoProperties.com. We thought that the people that came out of there seemed like they were better qualified.
Okay. So, there's that reason. I've heard that you can get spammed, is that the word? Where they'll take your ad and they'll make their own little ad, and then they'll get money from people that are foolish enough to send somebody they don't know money, and that kind of thing. I have found it the best marketing tool for us ever. So if you're not advertising on Craigslist, I encourage you to do so. That's that. Local and national websites. And so I also advertise on northernColoradoRentals.com. So it's Northern Colorado Rentals, and it's all spelled out, .com. And they're a wonderful website. They have So you can put your pictures on there and all your information, and they also offer a service for $150, at least that's what it was, I'm not sure if it's gone up or not, that they'll actually video your property and you can keep it forever. So they always have it archived wherever they do that in the outer space, that you can, when the property's available again, you can access that and have the video of your property. So to me, I think it's just a wonderful. Which kind of goes back to an interesting question that Derek brought up the other day. We never take inside pictures or video with the tenant's contents in the property. And it goes to a CSI Las Vegas I watched. Well, it was though. I mean, it was on that show. But I think it's just a real invasion of somebody's privacy. And it was interesting because Derek was showing a property the other day and the woman's husband was out of state and she said, oh, do you mind if I take some pictures to show my husband of what the, the property looks like? It's like, no. I try and have all of the interior pictures or videos of my properties on our website so they can, get an idea that way. But I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And again, that's just me. Newspapers, does anybody advertise in the newspaper? Do you? The Colorado one, the Loveland Herald? Reporter Herald, and that's worked out well for you? Yep. Okay, and I think again, this goes to marketing in towns, how do I want to say this? In areas that it's appropriate. So, you've got students, yeah, I think you need to be at the CSU Housing Fair. I think you need to advertise at the CSU website. In Loveland, I think you're seeing maybe you've got more people that read the paper or for whatever reason. We haven't. We kind of stopped that this year. I've put flyers at the Chamber of Commerce, real estate offices, the visitor centers. When the market was really, really bad, we actually put like little bowls of candy with a business card attached at hotels and motels, just to get, if people happened to be in town and were thinking about renting a property, they could grab a card. Word of mouth with your current residents is an awesome way to go. Say you have a duplex and you just let them know, you know what, we've got the property next door to you is available or the house 2 doors down. Well, obviously it's residents that you like. You don't want to ask the ones you don't like to have their friends live down the street. So, and referrals from other property management companies, CSU Housing Fair, networking with community organizations. I used to be on the board for the Museum of Contemporary Art. I was on the board for the Poudre River Art Center. I was on the board for the Poudre Valley Hospital Foundation, and I can't tell you how many residents I got from those groups. They just know that this is what you do, and so maybe it's Rotary or Sertoma or one of those other groups that you belong to. It's just a good thing to get the word out that that's what you've got. How many of you rent to Section 8 or tenants with housing vouchers through and you do this, you have as well. And you're a private investor? Uh-huh. And Associa, do you know? So, so people that have a Section 8 voucher, it's a government-funded program that they sign up for, and they have a waiting list right now, but the government will pay a portion of your rent or sometimes all of your rent if you qualify. And because they are not considered a protective class, you can choose not to rent to people that have a Section 8 voucher. The same is true with students. So, and the same is true with smokers. But you'll learn that in your fair housing class. Did I say that correctly, Brad? That's basically what it is. And we're Section 8 resident friendly. And I don't know if any of you, they'll talk to you about the new restrictions for the pets, which I thought was funny. Did you see the Colorado one? It's ponies and dogs. They don't allow cats or rats. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Hey, and if you've got questions, raise your hands, please. Yes?
Section 8 voucher payments?
Yes.
Do the payments come promptly from the government?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you'll get a check from them. Oh, yeah. So you'll get a check from the government, and then you'll also get a check from your resident if that's how they worked out the program. And I would encourage you, if you are not renting to Section 8 individuals, contact the Fort Collins Housing Authority on Mountain Avenue by City Park 9, and just go in and visit with them a little bit. I mean, I've had no issues with it. I mean, it's no more issues than anyone else. So I really encourage you to stop in and talk to them. And then this is my favorite I stopped someone on the street. So I'm driving to my folks' house, and they live across the street from Kmart on the frontage road. I'm at a stop sign, and I see this guy in a pickup truck, and it's he and his wife, and there's like 3 or 4 kids in the back seat of the pickup truck, and they're jumping up and down, and he's like swatting them, and she's trying to read the newspaper. And so it was a Saturday, and I kind of pulled up, and I said, so what do you need directions? Can I help you with something? The guy goes, oh. He said, we're in town from Kansas, and he said, we're trying to find a rental property. Would you guys shut up? And we're trying to find a rental property, and we just don't know what to do. And I just happened to remember that we had a property that was a 4-bedroom house, close by. And I said, you know what? Here's my cell number. Go drive by the house and call me. And yes, I did rent it. So it's just, it's amazing how, are you going to, overhear people at the coffee shop? Yeah. But anyway, so let's go to the next page, which is screening and background checks. I think what people don't realize that when you're doing screenings and background checks on residents, you're not only qualifying them, but you're eliminating them. I mean, I think you just need to keep that in the back of your head, that just because you got an application doesn't mean that that person's going to be the one that's going to rent your property. You need to go through the whole process with them. And our screening and what we do at our office is we answer the phones personally. Does anybody have, do you do automated phone? Yeah, it's irritating, right? So I'm so glad nobody else does that, or they're not admitting it. So we answer the phones. A good many of the people in our office do. There's just a couple of people in the office that are not allowed to. I'm kidding. Derek knows who they are. So the screening starts with the first contact on the phone. It's like, hey, how's it going? Oh, you need a rental property? So you need to pre-qualify them over the phone before you hop in the car and go and show them the property, and then they don't ever show up because they didn't drive by first. Has that happened to anybody? Yeah. You ask them the number of bedrooms, when do you need something, the price range, the location, the pets. And I always say to them, why don't you drive by first? For fair housing reasons, I can't tell you about the neighborhood. I can't tell you who lives, Go ahead and drive by, or on our website, which is awesome that you guys rentfortcollins.com, should all check out. We have pictures of the property, but I do always encourage them to drive by first, just to get a feel for what's going on, so that when you do get in the car and you do go to show the property, they actually do show up, because that can be a real issue. And we don't, as an office, we don't rent property sight unseen. Does anybody else, do you rent property sight unseen? Do you? So the reason we don't is, and it comes from just doing this forever. We had a property where the guy called. He just absolutely had to have it. I described it to him over the phone, and he got into town, hated the house, and canceled all his checks. And so I've just decided, you know what, we're not going to rent them sight unseen, but you can have your realtor friend, your employer, and same with you. You don't rent it sight unseen either. Okay. It just was a scary thing to happen, and so we just don't. And again, it's just how we do business. So anyway, so if you will take your sheets, now we're and if you can put them side by side here, we've got the qualifying criteria cover sheet. So the explanations on the left side, and on the right side is my actual form. Does that make sense? You got it. You got it. So on the left, it'll say qualifying criteria cover sheet, and then on this side, on the right side, is the actual form. So do you see this one? So we have a qualifying cover sheet, a criteria cover sheet, on the front of our application in a color, just because it's different than what the actual application looks like, and just kind of catches their attention. And the reason we do that is we want people to read, and hopefully they do, that this is our policy of how and what we expect from you in order to rent from us. And so at the top we have our fair housing policy. The second item is we have them give us an application fee. Does everybody charge an application fee? Pretty much. If you don't, I encourage you to, just because it takes some time. I mean, you need to realize that even though you're a private investor, this is a business. And you wouldn't ever give the keys to a Ferrari to somebody without checking them out. It just amazes me when people don't do credit, they don't check references. I mean, you just wouldn't give your keys to a Ferrari, but you, for some reason, would give keys to a house. So,
How much is your fee?
Oh, I can't disclose that. I can't. So we can't discuss fees in here.
If they ask questions, will you repeat them?
Oh, so I can't, Gary was asking what my application fee is, and I can't disclose that because that's a no-no.
Could you give us an idea of a range of application fees that are being charged? I'm sure there's a variety even in this room. Since I don't charge one, I'm interested in what kind of fees are charged and what do they cover?
So I'm not comfortable answering that question, but what I would recommend that you do is to go to the different websites for different property management companies. My application is on the website and it has that explanation. Is your application on your website? So what's Associa's?
Our fee,
No, your website.
AssociateColorado.com.
AssociateColorado.com. So check out her website. What's Touchstone? Touchstone.com? So touchstone-property.com. And this kind of goes to shopping. So you can even take this further, Mark. So you can check out their website and see what their application fees are. You can, a lot of our websites have our leases. I mean, it's a really good way to kind of check out what everybody's doing and just make some phone calls. So yeah, I just don't want to get in trouble.
No, I don't want you to be in trouble.
Yeah, but you have to realize, again, as private investors, and I meet with people all the time, what you're doing is a business, and you do need to charge for it. So I encourage you to do that. Our office policy is to take half of the security deposit as earnest money when they turn in the application. So we have the application fee that they give us when they turn in the application, and then they also give us half of the security deposit as earnest money, and then we will take the property off the market. If we do not get that, then the property is still available. And our policy in our office is that we sign leases within 72 hours. The Real Estate Commission says that you have to have money in the bank after 5 business days. So if you receive a security deposit and it's sitting in a file somewhere for a week and a half, that's a no-no. You need to get it as a broker. You need to get it in the bank within 5 business days. Weekends don't count. So that's again what we do. So do you take money more than the application fee when at Touchstone? No. How about Associa?
No.
Okay. And I'm not picking on you. It's just how everybody does business. We do that because we want those people to know when they're walking out of the office after they've given us an application that they can go home and start packing. That they pretty much know that that property is theirs, and they're not going to go and get on anybody else's website, and they're not going to look in the paper, and they're not going to go on northernColoradoRentals.com and look for anything else. They're assured pretty much that that property is theirs.
That's before you start doing your credit check?
Right, right, right. So when they turn in the application and we'll get to this in a minute, on the upper right-hand corner of my form, we actually set up a time within our 72 hours to sign the lease because we want to get them back. We want to get this done. It's like I don't want stuff sitting around. And again, it just goes to having done this for 100 years. Number 4 is very controversial. This is the medical marijuana. And you're more than welcome to take this paragraph and use it in your lease or in your application. Colorado State's medical marijuana laws do not and cannot override federal drug laws. So we prohibit all possession for sale, distribution, transportation, cultivation, and manufacture of marijuana. What I would encourage you to write in there is also cooking, because now we've gotten people that aren't doing any of those things, but now they're cooking marijuana to make the butter, which, go ahead.
Why wouldn't you want to broaden that and prohibit all forms of illegal drugs?
Because this came up last year. I had people renting from me that were putting in grow houses. So when you speak,
What I'm saying is have that, but also include, and you cannot.
so include meth and, yeah, and you certainly could. You certainly could. In my lease, I've got a gigantic paragraph, which you guys will learn about the crime-free housing addendum that I've just incorporated in my lease that talks about, meth and, blah, blah, blah. It's just that this came up last year, and so I just wanted to get, let's get it in and bold it. One of the attorneys from, I don't know how to say his name, Tetcher? Cheddar, and it's spelled T-S something or other. I got this from him, and there are 3 ways you can go with the medical marijuana. We don't allow it. No how, no way. I don't care if you've got a card or whatever. You can kind of allow it if you've got, your card or whatever it is that you get. And you don't care. And so basically with his newsletter that he gave us is, I may be a test case, so I may be here, next time going, well, no, don't do this. But for right now, we're not allowing any. And has anybody had problems in any of their properties? I mean, I have, you have, Touchstone, yeah. You have, it's a mess. It's a mess. And I went into this basement to look at putting in a big window, and the doors were locked. Well, first, we don't allow that, and you know what's going on. So he went in there and he said, well, no, I've got my license, and I've got my friend's mother's license, and I've got my friend's license. So he had like bazillions of plants in this basement in this very, highly engineered thing, made out of foil. It looked like something that landed from outer space. And, vents going this and there. Well, we don't allow alterations to our properties. And so to me, that was one. And I just basically said, you got to go. It's got to go, or you got to go. And obviously you walked in the house and it just reeked. And he wasn't even living there. So, that was kind of my first. So anyway, that's where that came from. Number 5. So anybody else on the medical marijuana? What did you do with your resident?
I was on his way out, and I was having somebody pull, I don't know, carpet or window covering or whatever, and we had permission to enter. I don't know what the guy was thinking. We walked
And he had plans?
Yeah.
A lot? A lot of plans? Yeah. Because I think you're allowed 3 babies, 3 teenagers, and 3 grown plants. 6 plants. 3 mature and 3 unmature, and 6. Oh, and then 6 total. Because I thought it was more than that. But anyway, just,
Well, my question on that is, am I under an obligation to report something like that? Like, we just turned a blind eye and went on our way, but I didn't know.
No, so should she report it to someone? Should she, And you reported it to the police? And because he or she had their license and they're allowed to grow, it wouldn't be anything, I'm assuming, that the police would come in and do, because they're allowed to do it under local. Oh yeah, meth, yeah. And so talking about that and your team, I'm actually very good friends with Kevin Cronin, who is a detective with the police department. And so you might want to write that down on your front sheet, is to be friends with those people as well. Schlager, whatever his name is, with the drug task force. I mean, these are all phone calls that when I'm in a bind, man, I'm not figuring this baby out by myself. I'm calling those people. So, which makes me think of a guy that was filming my tenants from across the street. But anyway, which isn't illegal. So, yes, you had a question.
Question related around the smoking. If you have a no smoking clause in your contract, I wonder if that would be
Yes, it would.
applicable to
Yeah.
the marijuana as well.
Yeah. So if you
would
chose
prevent
not to
growing.
say no, because you don't want to be the test case, and you have no smoking in your as a policy in your lease, then you would be covered. You'd be covered. Did somebody else have a question? No. And then it goes down to the decision to accept the application is based on blah blah blah, and then we just put in the city's code for 3 unrelated, because I have to. No, I'm kidding. I don't have. And then you go down to housing. You have to have timely rental payments, no incidents of abuse, no breach of a previous real estate rental contract. You can read all these things. Credit check. How many people do credit checks? Good for you. I wish I saw more hands. Credit checks are really important, and they tell you a whole lot about that person. So if you're not doing credit checks, we'll get into that in a minute, and I've given you some websites and some information on who to contact. We check current employers. How many of those of you, I have found more self-employed people lately. Any self-employed? So what we do with that is we ask for tax returns. So, I just got a boat captain yesterday. The guy's a boat captain. How cool is that? He's in Mexico, so he's going to give me his tax returns. I had a guy that owns a landscape company. Just different things will come up. You need to verify their income, even though they are self-employed, and you can do that through their tax returns. We do not allow felons over 7 years. Anybody else have that policy? What is yours for felons? Is it 5 years? I love it. Period. Okay, so you don't give them a time period frame or anything like that. Do you have any kind of policy on that? No?
I
No felons, period. So where I came up with 7 years, I don't know, but it's 7, and that's been kind of an issue lately too, which is kind of interesting. And then we let them know too, regardless of if they have a pet or not, what pets are or are not allowed. Does everybody have a pet restriction? Yeah. You don't have pet restriction. So, oh, you have a no pet property. Yeah. So if you don't have pets, you don't have to worry about it. So this is a list of pets. So it outlines what our pet deposit is. We have actually split it up so that the first pet is X amount of money and the second pet is a different amount. And then the following pets aren't allowed: Akitas, Shar-Peis, Dobermans, German Shepherds, Staffordshire Terriers, Rottweilers. So I put in Shar-Peis and Rhodesian Ridgebacks because a Rhodesian Ridgeback bit one of my maintenance guys really, it was pretty bad. And then a Shar-Pei bit me, so you're out. You're out of here. And then we don't allow ferrets or, because that's another story. Has anybody ever had a ferret in their property? Oh my gosh. Was it a good experience? No. No ferrets. It's bad. And then reptiles and birds must be caged. Iguanas for some reason was like the hot ticket a while back. I don't know what was up with that. So let's go ahead and on the next page, let's do the same thing that we did with your page before. So we're going to have your application, and then we're going to have the first page of my application kind of side by side, if you will. So in our office, anybody in my office is able to take an application. We don't, we are cross-trained pretty well as far as accounting, maintenance, leasing goes. Everybody is pretty well cross-trained as far as that goes. So we want everybody to be able to take an application, and money must be received before we'll actually accept the application. So the application fee, half of the security deposit is earnest money or whatever it is that you choose to do, and then a fully completed application. Excuse me. So when somebody turns in an application, we're really looking through it pretty well. We want to make sure that we've got the all the information that we need and that it's signed. So one of the first things that you need to make sure is that you've got their full name and their social security number. Has anybody had someone turn in an application that won't give you a social? Yeah. So what do you guys do about that?
Well, a lot of them were the student visa situations, so we'll get the visas.
Oh, so you have out-of-country residents that don't have a social security number. Okay. And I've had people that have probably been involved in identity theft, which is like, if you know anybody that's happened to, is an awful thing, that are concerned about giving us their socials. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go ahead and say, put it down, we'll run the credit report right now, and we will black this out for you, because it's just, I completely understand that. And then with visas, I think that you can check, well, I think Factual Data has a way, and I'll talk about them for doing credit checks, that you can check with the visa. We need their date of birth, their driver's license, and then you want their phone numbers. Those kind of top things in the top part of my lease are necessary in order for you to run a credit report. So if you have any of those items missing, I don't think there's anything else. I don't think you have to have those to run the credit report. And then we want to get their current property address. Go ahead.
If they want to run their own free?
No, don't do that. So she asked if they want to run their own credit report. I mean, they can fake it. I run the credit report. And I know a lot of them will come in and they'll go, well, I hate to pay blank amount of money for your application fee. I just got my own credit report. I don't do it because I'm just scared to death that they've gone and they've whited out something, or they've cut and pasted, so that it doesn't show that, Aspen Leaf Apartments, they owe $5,000 to, which I'll get into with the credit reports later. So I don't. And again, it's up to you. If you want to take their free credit report.
So do you charge for the credit report or the application?
It's a part of the application fee. So that's when you're thinking about, charging an application fee, you need to kind of, okay, how much time does it take me, and how much does the actual report cost? Go ahead.
Related with that, the application fee versus the earnest money, the earnest money would go back to the person if you don't rent it to them.
Correct.
And the application fee does not.
Right. So our policy is the application fee is non-refundable, and the earnest money, half of the earnest money or whatever you charge to go towards their security deposit at the time you take their application, if they are denied, will be returned to them. if they're denied. So you want,
Can I ask how much a credit report costs?
you know, that is,
Is that another wide range secret?
go ahead. Yeah, Brad can say, I can.
There's tons of different things you can do, like criminal background checks, but just a regular credit report's like $20.
And how much would the criminal background cost?
And then it ranges up, like you can get just the state, it's like $6 more. And it keeps going up. If you get the full everything, it's like 50, 60. But I know there might be some other websites that are cheaper.
So Brad was saying, because I have to repeat this because we're on tape. So Brad was saying that, or it's not Brad, Brandon was saying that a basic report for him is $20. You know, you start kind of, so you can go through a menu. You can get criminal background checks, state, federal, you know, so you can keep it.
Databases they can search.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of databases.
Who do you use? I'm just curious.
I can't remember the name on it. It's like City Credit Bureau.
Okay. Okay. And I've listed some when we get to that point. Go ahead.
If, do you have to get their authorization or a?
Yes, and that will be on the back page of the application that they're allowing you. Oh, and a shameless promotion for Ron. He owns Gold's asphalt company out of Loveland. So if you need some asphalt work, talk to him at Bray. Well, he works for him anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you have 3 students who are wanting to rent, do you have each of them pay for a separate credit report?
Correct. Yeah. And then you want to get their present address because you need that landlord to call. You want to get their previous address, and all that information, and then their current employer. So when we we look at the application before they leave the office because we need to make sure they filled out everything, but we also need to kind of look at their income because in order to rent, you need to make, and I can't talk about this, but X amount of times, you know, or a percent of rent in order to qualify. So it might be, you know, I think that the mortgage companies are 33% of your income. You know, I think they qualify that way. I'm not sure. So you all may have different criteria of how much income a person must make in order to qualify. So you want to go over that with them when they turn in the application, because at that point in time you need to say to them, okay, you need a cosigner or you need to pay a double deposit in order to qualify for us because of your income. And what do you guys do?
Yeah.
Same thing? Stace, I know I'm picking on you. Same, basically the same. So there's just, when they turn in the application, you're just getting a lot of information from them. So then if you just put this one aside, but grab the back page of this one and keep your application. So we need to know who else is going to be renting in the property. Because they may have a cousin that's going to come and visit, and you just want to know who's living in your property. Anybody over the age of 18 with our company has to fill out an application. We need to know vehicles, types of pets. Again, I go over, you know, what pets are and are not allowed. Emergency notification. Does everybody pretty much have that on their application? So a couple of reasons why I do that. Number one, I had a tenant die in my property. So you need to know, you know, who to tell the coroner to contact. Number two, they skip out on you. They owe you money. You're going to call that parent or aunt or uncle or whatever and say, hey, I need to talk to Joe because I need to get him his security deposit information. Well, you know he's not getting anything back. But those people, when they hear, oh, security deposit money, oh, sure, here's their forwarding address. They'll always tell you every time, I'm guaranteed. So that's a really good way to find deadbeat tenants. Other sources of income. Have you ever filed bankruptcy, convicted of a crime other than a vehicle violation? It's really interesting what I've seen on that. And then, you know, what amount of application fee they've paid, what amount of earnest money they've put down. As a licensed real estate broker, I need to disclose to them that I am working, my fiduciary responsibility is to my investor. And then they're representing that all of their statements are true and that they have not given us any false information. And the signature is also, you can't run a credit report or do really anything unless you've got that signature. So make sure that you've got that information. At the top of, so the next page, which says 9 scoring system, has to do with this right-hand column that says, and I'm sorry this is so confusing. It's really my fault for my horrible copying skills. It says office use. This is where you're writing, you're getting information from previous landlords, current landlords, employment, your credit score, all your stuff in order to determine if they're going to be able to rent from you. This is kind of your little worksheet, so to speak. And I ask only 5 questions, and those 5 questions are, was the resident ever late on the rent? Was there any money owing on the account? Did they have any NSF or bad return checks? Were there any 3-day notices for non-payment of rent? And then were there any lease violations? I will not, and my office is instructed to not answer questions that say, would you re-rent to these people? I think that's too much of a gray area. You'll find in your next few classes with the fair housing that you don't want to get in trouble for going on and on and on about what a pain in the fanny this person was. You're giving judgments. You want the facts. And so with my particular scoring system, and I'm going to give you a copy of this in a minute, we give them points. So they get points for their current landlord, they get points for their past landlord, and then they get, with their credit score, we work out a formula. So I'm going to give you, I didn't want to give you this too soon, but you can look at it now, because this is really complicated to explain my scoring system. We want it really black and white. We don't want any gray areas. When I go to somebody and say, you're welcome to rent from me, but you're within the scoring of such and such, then you'll need a cosigner or you'll need to pay a double deposit. You're basing this on fact, not feeling, not your gut feeling. So if you can just take one and pass it on and back, and hopefully I've given everybody enough. But that's, and if you have any questions about that, call me and we can go through it, because it's kind of complicated, but it's a scoring system. Stacy, what do you guys use? Do you have a scoring system? A checklist. And all students require a cosigner. And how about you? Do you have any kind of checklist? Yeah. And a lot of the property management companies that I've spoken with do have some kind of checklist. And I guess what I need to tell you too is my particular company, we have chosen to take applications based on first come, first serve. So the first person in the office with a completed application, all the money that's required, they get to rent the property. And I'm not going to have you show a hand. I mean, there are some investors that will take 6 applications and they kind of spread them out and they kind of look over them and then they kind of talk to it, with somebody else, and they pick and choose. I think you're opening yourself up for a fair housing lawsuit. Why are you basing it on that? Because they drove up in a nice car, or because that person didn't have kids, or, it's too scary to me. So our office policy is first come, first serve. Fortunately, because the market has gotten so good, we are actually taking a second. So if somebody else comes in the office, we'll put at the top of your sheet, we'll put second application received. So if the first one doesn't work out, then we'll go ahead and take that second application. Again, I just do this for fair housing reasons. I don't, it's up to you how you do your own business, but that's our practices. So that's your handout on how to do the scoring system. Again, I'm not going to go through that with you. Does anybody have any? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if you know a person has a bankruptcy or foreclosure or short sale or whatever up front, do you still encourage them to make application, or you say you're not qualified or whatever?
So she's asking if they have a bankruptcy or foreclosure, and they tell you about it. And we're doing people with short sales. I mean, it's just an interesting market right now. And they tell you up front. We are okay with that. It will be a ding against your current landlord reference, because we use their mortgage as their current landlord reference, and it'll be a late payment on their account. But and then with short sales, the same. When you're running their credit report, all of that information will be on their credit report, and it also factors in that with their score when you're doing the scoring system for their credit, and that's kind of explained in the scoring system. So I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one to go through my scoring system. but it's all factored in when you're running the credit report anyway, so you don't really have to make that call.
Do you ever share kind of your rating system with the applicant when they're?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is what we're gonna
Yeah, yeah.
And then, if they're ever denied, do you let them know why?
Yes, you have to, and we'll get to that at the end. You have to give them a letter if they're denied. So I've got that form in my packet for you at the end here. So, so call me if you want to go through the scoring system. I'm happy to do that. And again, all areas must be acceptable. For the applicant is denied, then a denial letter is sent, and we'll get into that. So credit reports, I put a, so this is on the kind of the bottom of your page here. I use Kroll Factual Data. They're out of Loveland. Oh, and you, what did you say you use? Citycredit.net. You might look into that. Kroll Factual Data will cost you about $150 to get set up. And what they will do is they will come to your office. They will make sure that you have kind of a secured system in how you do your credit reports, and you know, make sure that those credit reports that you do run are, you know, not just laying around for anybody to see. And then you're all set up, and then it's the cost of the credit reports. So I really encourage you to do that. They've been a wonderful resource for me. And the other reason that I love Kroll is they have set it up so that it's called a tenant qualifier system. Does anybody else use Kroll? Do you guys? And you do? So don't you love that? You can put in your criteria, and they'll help you set it up because it takes a while, right? And they'll help you set it up so that they set it up for someone that's just renting property. And it goes to length of time of employment, let's see, employment, length of time at residence, how much they make, and it helps you as a landlord figure it out rather than just getting some random, you know, credit report that says 650 points. You know, this actually is for residents. So I love this company, and you can call them. But here's some other ones, you know, creditretriever.com, Equifax, Colorado Courts. These are just some, and then like he said. And again, the application should be based on fact and your office policies, never on opinion or emotion. I mean, I just think you're going to get in trouble with that. And then if you want to maybe have a second person kind of review the application so that you don't just have one person in your office doing that. And then, you know, fill out the lease. So the next page has to do with lease guarantor forms. Does anybody else, well, Touchstone, all your students it's automatic lease guarantor. So it's a lease guarantor or cosigner form. It just depends on how you want to, you know, call it. Do you do lease guarantors? So if their scoring system is such, or their income is such, that they don't qualify to rent without restriction, so restriction would be they need to get a cosigner, or maybe you require a double deposit, or maybe you require, I just got a lease from somebody else the other day that required that they not only pay a deposit, but they also pay their last month's rent. You know, it just depends on what your policy is. If they can go ahead and rent with you, but you've got some restrictions about how they can rent. So the cosigner form, or the lease guarantor form, I have found needs to be a parent or guardian. It needs to be some kind of blood relative of the resident. Years past, I did an employer. Well, then the employer fires them, and you know, they go on their way, and the employer's like, heck no, I'm not paying their debt, or you know, it might be their fake cousin or a friend. You know, it just needs to be a blood relative. That's our policy. And then some red flags to be wary of when a resident turns in an application is that they're way too anxious to move in. I don't know, is anybody? So the first time I ever rented a property was my dad's property, and it was over on Hollywood Street. And I was showing the property, and this woman pulls in this really nice car, and I don't know why she did it, but she's carrying cleaning supplies. She's got cleaning supplies, and she's like, oh, I'm so excited to see this place. And it was kind of a rundown, funky house on Hollywood Street. So she's got her cleaning supplies, and she's dressed really nicely, and she's driving this really nice car. And so she puts down the cleaning supplies, and we go in and we look at the house, and she gets in her purse, and she's got wads of cash, like wads of cash. She's like, look, here's my first month's rent. here's, and here's the security deposit, here's my pet deposit, and oh, and would it be okay if I'm really a neat freak, and I want to clean the place, and my boyfriend, he's a painter, and so does this sound familiar at all to anybody? Yeah, we've all been there. So I'm like, well, heck yeah, you can rent this place. Let's sign on the dotted line. Well, 2 months later, me and the SWAT team have surrounded the house because the boyfriend's in the closet with a gun. So, you just have to be really careful of those people that want to move in really fast. As, I did, thank goodness it was my dad's house. Information doesn't add up on the application. So again, when you're running those credit reports, I found people say, oh yeah, they lived at, they're currently living at New Colony Apartments. And before that, they lived with Touchstone Property Management. But the dates are kind of weird. Like there's like this missing 3 years when they were probably down at Canyon City or, maybe at the detention, I don't know, somewhere. You pull the credit report and lo and behold, they were at Aspen Leaf Apartments. They were with Touchstone, they left, they went to Aspen Leaf, they were deadbeats, and now they're, you know what I'm saying? So you really need to look at that application, look at that credit report, because it's going to give you lots of information. Something else that I've chosen to do as a company is if I see that they owe money to any other property management company, any other apartment community, and I don't care if it's in the state of Colorado or Hawaii, they are automatically denied unless they pay that bill. And I have to tell you that there are a number of management companies in town that should thank me because they've gotten payment in full. And it's just my policy. If you don't pay that, and if you don't make payment arrangements for that, then you just can't rent. It's just, I think it's just a, common courtesy for those of us in the industry. Credit report shows a management company or apartment community that they owing money. Become defensive about the application process. I mean, how many of you have had that happen? Like, well, why do I have to give you my social? Well, why do you need to know who my previous landlord was? Well, I don't want to do this. I won't do that. And sometimes you just have to sit down with them and say, this is our policy. This is how we do our business. And if this is not going to work, I'll guarantee you it's not going to work down the road. And then how many of you, well, I won't ask this. How many of you accept the resident making repairs in lieu of maybe their deposit or in lieu of maybe their first month's rent? Don't do it. It won't happen. Or they'll paint the property and they'll be like, they just took the roller up to the ceiling, right? Have you seen that, Or yeah, they work for a carpet company and it never gets changed out. I just don't do it. And for liability reasons and workman comp reasons, we never exchange rent, security deposit, pet rent, anything for repairs. And then it's really important when you're calling on rental references and you're calling on employer references that the person answering the phone at the end, on the other line, doesn't answer, yo, yeah, huh, what? You welcome? You need to make sure that that person that you're calling is really who they're renting from. And so when I call on a rental reference, I will say, Bev Perina wants to rent my property. And she said she lived at, and let them fill in the blank. Oh yeah, they live at 110 Oak Street. And they paid how much rent? Let them fill in the blanks. So you're letting them fill in the blanks and not just telling them so that they can go, yeah. Because their buddy has told them, hey, Bev's, or this person's gonna call you and ask you for a rental reference. So you just need to tell them, yeah, I lived at Oak Street and I paid $550 rent and I was awesome and great. So you just need to be really careful. And the same with employers. So does that make sense? You'll have people that they know, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and I've caught more people than I can even tell you, that say, well, I don't know how much rent they paid. I'll have to get back with you. And they never call back, and then you just call them and go, yeah, I know what you're up to. You've got your uncle answering the phones. So I've given you a copy of my lease guarantor form. And this is the form that I give them. I put it on normally, if it's not me copying, but I normally put it on back to back. And it gives them an explanation of why they need a lease guarantor. And then here's the actual form. And I have it notarized. I have them give me a copy of their driver's license, or I'll witness their signature in the office, because I've had people that sign for their parents, and then when they're in trouble, the parents are like, what are you talking? I never co-signed. So that's why we do that. Does anybody else use a guarantor form? Did we ask that? Yeah. And then we're kind of running out of time, and then I want you guys to ask questions. If the applicant is denied, we have an application denial form letter here. And it can be for a lot of different reasons. It can be credit, it can be a bad landlord reference, their social security number doesn't match, but you've got to give them a copy of why you denied their application. So what I typically do is call them up, say, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out. I'll void their check. I'll make a copy of the voided check. I'll fill this out. I put the copy of the voided check and this letter on top of their application, and then put that in a file. And I keep it 7 years. Sometimes, I think that the, what is it? Do they say 5 years? I don't know. We keep everything 7 or 15 years. I don't know. I've got files from 1982 in my garage. But anyway, so that's kind of my spiel for today. Does anybody have questions? I'm done a little early. This is a miracle. This is a miracle. I just wanted to share with you. This is my little prop. This is what I give all of my leasing agents, and I can leave it so you can look at it at break. But this is what all my leasing agents have in their cars, and it's just a nifty little folder that has door hangers and notepads and pens and applications and cosigner forms, extra move-out forms, just any information that would be important that you think when you're showing the property. I don't know if you've ever, those of you that have management companies, have ever looked in the car of your leasing agent. It's hilarious. It's like, my daughter is the worst. But it is full of applications and available sheets and everything else. So this kind of keeps everything neat and tidy, and then you've got everything that you need. And you can kind of take it in, and then if they're giving you a problem, you can, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to whack the person.
Brief, a walkthrough and a walk out, and what you do to
A move-out inspection?
Yeah.
So I have a 29-page move-in inspection report, and you're welcome to come to my office and get a copy of that. It is 29 pages for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, has a 1-car garage. So when the new resident moves in, we give them 7 days from their move-in to fill out this inspection report. And it's light switches, it's outlets, it's door stops, it's windows, it's screens, it's the whole 9 yards. We want them to give us an idea of what the property looks like when they moved in. They're going to fill it out with blue or black pen and give it back to us in 7 days after they've moved in. I give them 7 days because, you're moving in and you're seeing, it just takes a while to go through this. Then when the people move out of the apartment, we physically schedule an appointment with them to go to the property and walk through the property with them using this very same form that they filled out, and we're using a red pen, and we're going through the property and making sure that either it's the same or there's damages. And so it's just, it kind of keeps everybody honest, and then they know that anything that was done that they didn't mark down and is different than they're going to be charged for. And it's just important, and I think it's really important too, that you walk through that property with them when they move out. And we also require that they have the carpets professionally steam cleaned. So when we do the move out inspection with them, they have a carpet cleaning receipt, they have their forwarding address, and they have their keys. And we always change locks between residents. So the day we do the move out inspection, we do we do the lock change, we do the move out inspection. And then something different that I've started in the past 3 years is an hour after we do the move out inspection, I have cleaning people come in. And if they're there for 5 minutes or they're there for 5 hours, that property is always professionally steam cleaned, or not cleaned. Then the next person moving in is moving into a place that's been professionally cleaned. So that's how we do it. You guys do a move out, don't you?
We don't have time to meet with 300 tenants and do an actual walkthrough.
Oh, so you don't physically go through
With the tenant.
Yeah,
we do it.
so they just kind of let you know when they're going to leave and.
They're to be out at noon.
Oh, okay.
Specific days.
Uh-huh.
And we come in at noon to change locks.
Uh-huh.
In
Okay. And what about you guys? Do you do?
Yeah, we do.
You do. And again, it's just, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how you do business and how you choose to do it. I've had, when we have move out time, which is typically at the end of July or the end of any month, but typically the end of July is really busy. I call in all my favors. I have my husband, my kids, my neighbors, anybody else to go out in teams, and we physically go through the move-out inspection with these people. I've even had the Buckaroos, who's the girls' baseball team. I hired them one year to do the move-out inspection. So again, it's all in how you do the business. I just like, or you know, your how you run your business.
Do you have an in-house cleaning company or?
I sub all of my maintenance out. I did have in-house maintenance, and I'll never do that again. So all of my cleaning, everything is subbed out. And so the move-out process is really starts when you get that notice of vacate from the resident. You're starting, you know, you're setting up your cleaning, you're setting up your inspection people, you're setting up all of that stuff ahead of time.
Can you recommend anybody?
We'll come to my office and we'll go through that. Yeah, I've got a number of different people that work for me. But it's, I can't tell you, it has solved so many problems for me, not getting that phone call from somebody saying, this house isn't clean. You know, everybody's perception of clean is different. And when you can say to them, when I'm signing the lease, I have the property professionally cleaned, you know, before you move in, no phone calls. I get no phone calls, no complaints, and they really appreciate it. And then when they move out, I am able then too, if it's not as clean as that, you know, I always charge them a portion of the cleaning because I've had it professionally cleaned. They know it, you know, needs to be that standard, and I will charge them for whatever cleaning isn't done. Maybe not all of it, maybe a portion of it, maybe just a little bit of it, just depending on how bad it was when we did the move-out inspection. And a lot of you may have an automatic, I just took another lease from just put in another lease from another management company, and they charged X amount of money automatically out of the deposit for cleaning. X amount of money automatically out of the deposit for carpet cleaning. And I think it would be hard to hold up in court but that's just my own opinion. So, you know, it's whatever you require. We require that they give us a receipt for having the carpets cleaned, but you may require that you're going to take it out of their deposit and it's going to be your company. It's going to be who you choose.
In their lease, the carpet
Yeah,
cleaning?
yeah. It says X amount of money will be retained from your deposit for carpet cleaning, but then it's up to you now to schedule that. So depending on how big you can, and maybe you want to. So any other questions? Awesome.
Thanks,
Great.
Bev.
You're welcome.